Mimi, if you could join us and talk a little bit about Nordics versus rest of Europe and how your media background looks.
Thank you for that. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes,
so I'm going to share my screen.
So Mimi is joining us from Sifted, has extensive background in the media industry, and she was recently on a Startup Grind talk with me a few weeks ago. So very excited to hear today what we can share with the founders. Mimi, stage is yours.
Great, thanks. Yes, so I do work for Sifted.eu, which is this European tech media. And before that, I used to be in Swedish tech media, so that's my kind of where I'm coming from. So, I mean, I love the things that Marvin was saying as well about, you know, how we in the Nordics have managed to have great know-how in tech and design, and how all the kind of alumni from these big startups back in the days like TradeDoubler and so on have really like created a startup hub in somehow. But coming back to what I actually like, my thesis about this is like what we're trying to do here, or what we have done to manage to create all these unicorns, is actually create a hype around it. And when you create a hype around it, the rest will follow. So why has the media been key for the startup scene, especially in like Sweden? Well, I mean, in 2015, we had two different media sites that actually started. It was Breakit and it was The Digital. Those two are competing with each other for all the kind of funding rounds and all the startup news that actually came out at the time, which made that everyone who had some funding news actually got the media attention. So creating this hype around the startups of the sector and the business and how much money you could make actually created something great. This is something that I've seen missing in maybe like in Norway, Denmark and Finland, but I'm sure it's coming. And then maybe the push will actually mean that even those countries will actually come up to the same level as Sweden has in unicorns. So if you look at the investments in the ecosystem, I think this is kind of like telling. Obviously, I mean, you can see a huge spike here for Sweden, but I just want to say, like in 2021, 1/3 of that investment that we can see in almost like 9 billion almost, and 1/3 was from Northvolt investment. So you can see this decacorns have actually made the kind of investment spike in the Swedish line there. So just going back a little bit to why the Nordics is so special. Usually from an outside perspective, we talk about the social safety net in Sweden and other Nordic countries, and how good we are in letting people thrive and actually having this kind of, you know, if you fail, you can always start again. And maybe we have the mindset that we can fail and start again, but maybe the safety net is not, the social safety net is not the key. Because in Sweden, we do say that it is actually key, but in Norway, I've heard people say that we actually fail because we do have a too good of safety net, so people don't have to do their own business and stuff like that. So, well, if you look at the startup founders, they usually come from prestigious business school. And in Sweden, it's like, well, the Stockholm School of Economics, like so many have started there, like Klarna, for example. And usually startup founders would like to say that they are one of like everyone else, like the Klarna founders were working at Burger King, I believe it was, but they were never really poor. So they didn't have that kind of socioeconomic background that so many other people have, and who do not actually start companies, not like startups who wants to become really big. So I believe that the personal safety nets are key for founders. So, which we can notice when we actually look at the people starting all this kind of great startups. So why have then the startup founder become the new dream job? Like in 2007, 2008, most people would maybe become management consultants or bankers, but now they want to become startup founders. And this is because there's plenty of role models. It's media have been hyping it, obviously. Failure is fine, and there's lots of venture capital available. So all those together means that you can actually have a much better career if you have started 1 or 2 startups and have an exit than actually becoming a banker. So I believe that's one of the key why so many people at those kind of major business schools actually want to go and create a startup for themselves. And so where does all the money come from? I mean, like in the US, insurance companies and banks and everywhere else as well. But also in the US, pension funds have been very good to actually put money in the VC funds and so on. I mean, now we're talking obviously also about startup founders that have done an exit. They're great at also investing in other startup founders. But I mean, these are the kind of the big players. So in Sweden, the pension funds have been very keen to invest in startups. They've done so in Klarna, Spotify, Northvolt, and the rest. But they also, the ones that are not allowed to do investments straight into startups, they do it through the VC funds. So it's become this kind of huge hype that everyone wants to invest. Even the Swedish church have invested in VC funds, which kind of just shows how the interest is in investing in startups. I mean, I think almost every other just normal person who's investing in the stock exchange have wanted to invest in startups, well, before the crunch in a way. So there are some challenges to the Nordic tech scene, and there are a lack of diversity among founders. I mean, it's great to see some examples of non-native people actually going on to create these great startups in the Nordics, but they are rare. And also the female founders, I mean, I did do a report on this in 2017. I started doing this for DI, and women then raised 1% of all the VC capital, venture capital available. Today, the figure is almost the same. This means that we haven't actually changed that much. Even though we have parental leave and all that, we haven't actually been able to kind of create this ecosystem for female entrepreneurs. And also, I believe that in Sweden in particular, we don't really have enough moonshots. We're not thinking big enough. Maybe Northvolt is an example, and people will follow and think bigger. But because this is becoming a big trend of everyone wanting to have a startup, it's also a risk that we are going for the easy startups, the ones that actually are having an app or doing another fintech. And what we need is maybe like the deep tech ones in the future. So that was me. Get in touch.
Mimi, thank you so much for amazing insights. I loved your last slide where you talked about lack of diversity and then about female founders. I work very deeply in the ecosystem. I think one of the major things in ecosystems that's required is how the ecosystem itself can transform. We at Companion, for example, have in the last 2-3 years consistently delivered around 50% advisory sessions to female founders. I think the entire ecosystem needs to switch its approach, how we can become more diverse and more supportive to female founders as well. And something needs to happen on the VC side. And I think loved your point on not enough moonshots. I think it resonates partly with what Marvin was saying, too humble, and the other side is too easy, too safe startups. Thank you so much. We are bringing